Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a Frizz? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you see it. What's in my neighborhood? Surfing on the sine wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at Human Testing, take your second right past Mars on the magic school bus. Alligator nostril, climb on the magic school bus. Spank a plankton too. I'm on the magic school bus. Drop the river of love on the magic school bus. Such a fine thing to do. So strap your bones back to the seat. Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pie on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wild ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
Yo, bro, guess what?
What?
My mom finally agreed to raise my allowance.
No way, I guess you finally wore her down.
Wait a second. How come your mom will raise your allowance, but my mom refuses to raise my allowance? Because we're doing the same thing. Don't we deserve equal pay?
Good morning, class. What is this lively conversation about?
I didn't mean to yell, but how come Arnold gets a raised allowance? Don't we deserve the same thing?
Well, interesting question, Wanda. Who wants to go on a field trip?
Where?
Well, we're going to travel through time and examine closely people who asked the same exact question as you did, Wanda. To the bus!
Look, class, outside the window. Welcome to the year 1789, the beginning of the French Revolution. Today we will see a pivotal event that kick-started this revolution. But first, a little background. And now they say, the French Revolution was not due to one event, but a brewing of ideas that include the freedom and rights of many. Any questions?
Will there be food on this field trip?
Arnold!
Yes, there will be food, Arnold. And if we get lucky, we can even have some of Marie Antoinette's famous cakes.
And didn't she wear really pretty dresses?
Yes, she did, Wanda. Shall we go pay her a visit at Versailles?
Oh, it's so beautiful! I bet it cost a lot of money to make.
And it did. The building of Versailles and funding for the American Revolution made France go into some debt. It's bad. See, the thing is, the first and second estate, they were like, yeah, man, you know what, third estate, made up of all you poor people who are farmers and workers, we didn't really have a lot of money. They carried the economic burden.
That doesn't sound good at all.
It wasn't. The thing is, Louis noticed that too. And he called together the Estates General to see if he can get a compromise between all three estates to try to get France out of debt. But the third estate, man, they felt real underrepresented. So they formed their own National Assembly by taking the tennis court oath.
Was it about tennis courts?
Not really, Ralphie, but they did take it on a tennis court. The whole idea behind it was that they wouldn't stop fighting for their rights until there was a proper constitution.
Well, did the king do anything about it?
Well, yeah, he did. He actually ordered the third estate should join the National Assembly with the first two estates.
That doesn't sound very smart. It sounds like the third estate got what they wanted.
Well, indeed you are right, my friend, because watch what happens next.
I found a gun!
The storming of the Bastille kick-started the French Revolution. The third estate wrote a document called the Declaration of the Rights of Men and Citizens, and they kept fighting for a constitution until 1791 when the king signed it.
So the people won?
Well, not exactly, because the king was caught trying to get financial and foreign aid from Austria to be reinstated as sole ruler. This kick-started stage number 2 of the French Revolution.
So what really happened, Miss Frizzle?
Well, the second phase of the French Revolution was really radical. There was no more diplomacy.
Wait, does this involve violence?
Yeah, it does.
You're right, Ralphie. There was a huge dispute between the Girondins and the Jacobins. Unlike the Girondins, who were pretty chill, the Jacobins were super radical and revolutionary. Their leader, Maximilien Robespierre, thought that the Constitution wasn't revolutionary enough, so they took matters into their own hands.
What did they do?
They started something called the Reign of Terror.
What's that?
I'll show you.
She has a thick neck.
Yes, Dorothy, this was a really scary time. Anyone who was against revolution was dead.
Did this nightmare ever end?
Well, it did, with the Thermidorian reaction. That was the execution of the man who started it all, Maximilien Robespierre.
Is the French Revolution over yet?
Nope. Because of the Reign of Terror, the monarchy was overthrown, nobles lost all power and wealth, people did get some equality, but most importantly, the rise of an iconic leader, Napoleon Bonaparte.
Wasn't he a military leader?
Well, since Napoleon went to military school at a young age and excelled at the top of his class, he conquered all of Italy.
Didn't he also bring back the wonders of Egypt to Europe?
Yeah, he did. Especially the Rosetta Stone, which helped the Europeans decipher hieroglyphics. He even brought about government, social, and education reforms. You know, with all his power, he conquered all of Europe and made a one giant continent under his rule. But every hero must have a downfall, and that came when he tried to invade the Russians. After this, his power decreased a lot, and he was exiled in Elba, but after a while, he decided to make an epic comeback and escaped from the island. But, sadly, he was defeated at Waterloo by the Duke of Wellington from Great Britain. Even though he did die after, his legacy did live on through the Napoleonic Code, which gave education to a lot of people as well as other rights and freedoms.
Miss Frizzle, when does the Congress of Vienna happen?
Well, that's what's happening right now. The Congress of Vienna was led by the major European powers and a representative from each one, mostly Metternich from Austria. Their main goal was to turn back the clock after the French Revolution. But the French Revolution, like Pandora's box, once opened, couldn't be closed. So they basically tried to redraw the map of Europe. After France took away all this land, because of Napoleon, they tried to kind of balance it out, you know? And their main goal was also to maintain peace for a little while.
How did Britain get so powerful as to be able to beat Napoleon? He was like a god.
That's a really good question. That's actually our next stop, where we will see how Britain rose to power.
How come we went back further in time?
Well, to truly understand our next destination, which is the Industrial Revolution, we gotta go back to the Agricultural Revolution.
I don't see what this has to do with the Industrial Revolution. This place is a complete mess.
That's exactly the point, Ralphie, because it was a mess and they needed to clean it up.
But why?
Well, this is all farmland that the nations use to grow crops and feed their people. But before, the farming was really inefficient. And so, the farmers initiated change, and that resulted in the enclosure movement, which made farming a lot more efficient.
It has come to the attention of your British Parliament that these farmlands are a mess. We know that you have adopted systems like the 4-crop rotation, but they alone are not enough. So we, your British Parliament, are going to help you put up fences to keep your crops from entangling with each other, as well as to keep your livestock out of the crops. That way, you will produce more goods.
How come all these people are leaving the farmland? It just got cleaned up.
Well, even though the Enclosure Act did help the harvests, it didn't help the farmers. Either farmers with small amounts of land had to become tenant farmers or move to the large city in search of jobs. Most chose the latter. Since there was a lot of people in the city now,
people were in search of jobs. This kick-started the Industrial Revolution. Looky here, kids, it's industrial Britain.
Whoa!
As you can see outside, there are newly erected factories, which we can now go and see.
Well, before people were working from the comfort of their own homes, now they worked in the factories. Sounds a lot more convenient for the people in charge.
But was it convenient for the workers?
Well, guys, it really wasn't, because the machines, they were really dangerous, and the workers were overworked. They had to work 14, 16 hours a day with little food and little pay. Even children were employed, and they had to go in and fix the machines while they were still on, which is really dangerous. Sometimes children lost their fingers, their legs, maybe even their arms.
Look over there!
Oh.
That's so sad.
It really is, but because of this industry, Britain gained so much wealth really, really fast. And because they used the money to support their already strong navy, they were able to defeat Napoleon.
But didn't the workers fight back against their mistreatment?
Well, of course they protested. Some of the more violent protesting, led by the Luddites, included smashing new equipment to protest against the Industrial Revolution. However, not all of them were really violent. We have one more of the Industrial Revolution. Let's go!
Gross! Why is this field so bloody?
Well, Phoebe, this is the site of the infamous Peterloo Massacre.
Ugh! What did those protesters do to deserve that kind of death? I thought you said they were being peaceful.
Good question, Ralphie. No one really knows what happened here. Some say that the British rode in and they slaughtered all the peaceful protesters that were protesting there. Others say that the protests themselves had weapons. All we know for certain is that violence happened. It was really bloody.
I've made up my mind. The Industrial Revolution was a horrible thing.
Ah, but was it really a bad thing? Sure, the people got the short end of the deal, but look at all the technological advancements that happened during this time. The world became a smaller place because of the steamboat and the train. New technology aided farmers to be a lot more efficient with their crops. And since the workers got so mistreated, they started standing up for their rights, and this eventually led to them standing up for their equality. So many ideas brewed during this time, which leads us to our next stop. Welcome to the times of change. Here, there's a chock full of stuff that shaped our world today.
What do you mean?
Well, during this time, ideas like conservatism, liberalism, and communism emerged.
What does that mean?
Well, communism is when all the power was placed in the government, but everyone still had some equality. Liberalism, though, was supportive of democracy, laissez-faire, and the rule of the Corn Laws. But conservatism, which some people still did support, was the traditional way of government.
Why are there suddenly so many schools of thought?
Well, see, a lot of people had different ideas, such as nationalism, utilitarianism, and romantic movement, which led to a lot of other events. Picking up where we left off in the Industrial Revolution, the workers' movements.
Hey, Parliament, give us our rights or we'll start a revolution!
In England, the worker movement took off. It was started by Karl Marx and his communist theories, which demanded more rights for the workers.
How about a heads up if this is going to end like the Peterloo Massacre or the French Revolution?
Well, Carlos, Britain actually avoided revolution because of the Great Reform Act that was passed by the government.
Wow, that's smart.
Yes, it was, but the other nations weren't as smart. Because so many people across Europe wanted their rights, revolution broke out. The French were no stranger to revolution. They revolted, secured a new government, and revolted again.
Well, did other nations succeed?
Well, some did and some didn't. A common theme in this time was the nations that had support from their neighbors did succeed, and the ones that were alone and isolated often failed.
Is that why the Belgian Revolution was successful and the Polish one wasn't?
Yeah, just think about it. I mean, Belgium was backed with such a powerful nation as Britain. And if you're backed up by your friend, don't you think that you'd be more successful than someone like Poland, who just had no help at all?
Wow, all I've heard today is about how Britain is such a powerful nation. Nothing could bring that country down.
Well, that's not completely true, Arnold, because Britain did suffer during this time, but it was through something else that wasn't revolution. It was the potato famine.
Oh, I've learned about this.
That's right. It was one of the most devastating events in history.
So many people died. It's so sad.
It really is. I mean, people caught diseases and died. There was like a mass death in Ireland. And on top of that, Britain didn't even support them.
Didn't they ignore the problem and even blame the Irish people?
That's right, Carlos. It was so bad because the Irish didn't have anywhere to run during the Blight.
I still don't see how this weakened the British.
As you all know, this time was defined by revolutions, and though Britain didn't have a major revolution, they still had to fight back because how they treated the Irish. During the potato famine, the Irish rose up and fought back. And although Britain was a superpower and they didn't really get affected that badly, it was still a big blow.
All this revolution and fighting, can't anybody come together instead of fight to break apart?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Ralphie, because that leads us to our next stop. Next unit is the Italian and German unification, which were long processes that involve important figures, people, and events. Before we see this unit, let's have a little bit of context.
What kind of background context?
Before these unifications, the Crimean War happened. This was when Russia wanted warm water ports, and they took their opportunity when it came. But this actually threatened Britain, which caused them, instead of supporting Russia, to support the Ottoman Empire. And since Britain supported the Ottomans, so did France. And this caused the Ottoman Empire to win the Crimean War instead of Russia.
Miss Frizzle, if this war was so bad, then why are we talking about it?
Well, that's a good question. Follow me. Well, the importance of this is that Russia saw playing the central role in European affairs. Come on, follow me to Germany. Germany was unified by Otto von Bismarck, a political genius, and he was the first chancellor of Germany. He used military tactics and a realpolitik method to unify Germany, and without him, it wouldn't have been even possible.
Wow.
How could a leader have so much power and influence?
Bismarck was so powerful because he controlled international politics and domestic policies.
Well, what did he do for the unification of Germany then?
Well, overall, he made calculated yet risky decisions. He actually overthrew Austria in the 7 Weeks' War, which eliminated any kind of threat to the German unification.
Is that it? He managed to unite Germany so easily.
Well, not quite. See, the thing is, Austria wasn't the only threat. France was also a potential threat, and Bismarck knew that he would never let Germany unify. So, Bismarck started a war on his own terms, and therefore eliminated France, which is a threat to the unification.
A whole war? Aren't there simpler ways to unite Germany?
Well, remember, Ralphie, Bismarck was a realpolitik, which means that he exercised ruthless means and did whatever he could to win.
Well, what about Italy? What happened to them during all this?
Well, that's a great question, Ralphie, because that's where we're going next.
Italy!
Woo! The Italian unification, or the Risorgimento, was when all the Italian states came together and became the Kingdom of Italy. Now, before the 1860s, Italy was divided into small states, papacies. But there were many forces pushing for this unification, such as nationalism, a common theme of Catholicism, the Italian language, as well as the ascension of Piedmont, Sardinia.
But how did the unification even happen if the states were so isolated and independent?
They wanted the same thing. You know, this unification started as 2 separate forces, one in the north and one in the south. But sooner or later, they realized that Italy can only be together and whole if they all join together, both the north and the south. The men behind these forces were Garibaldi and Cavour, and they knew that working together was the only way to unite these 2 parts of Italy. With a lot of effort and hard work, Italy was finally unified.
Was it as celebrated a unification as in Germany?
Well, yes and no. The Italian people were very happy to be unified as one country, but the north and south were still kind of isolated and had some differences. Now, this would cause problems for lots of years, but that's a wrap for this time. Now, back to the bus!
I've seen so much war. Will the suffering ever end?
Well, lucky for you, Ralphie, because now we're entering La Belle Epoque, a time of peace and prosperity. We have 3 main stops during this trip. So off we go.
Right to vote. Give us the right to vote. Give us the right to vote. Give us the right to vote. Why were all those women so angry?
Well, Ralphie, they were fighting for their rights and they were protesting, especially their right to vote.
Women couldn't vote?
No, you idiot! They weren't handed everything like men on a silver platter. They had to fight for their rights.
Yes, indeed. Women of this time period were just done shutting up and making dinner. First, they started protesting peacefully, but when that didn't work, they became radical.
What do you mean by radical?
Just wait and see.
Did that at least work?
Well, Arnold, for a long time, it really didn't, because women were just making themselves look crazy, and all this propaganda was being spread that they were insane. But as time moved on and World War I came around, women actually stepped in for their husbands and men in their lives that went to war. This responsibility and this great honor actually got them the right to vote.
So cool. Where to next?
To the hospital! Before we go to our next stop, I think we should take a moment to take a look at the medicine and the medical changes during this time. Children, meet Joseph Lister.
Hello, children. I am the man credited with the start of modern medicine. You see, I discovered that germs cause infection, which kills people. So I did something about it.
Mr. Lister, you're my idol. I can't imagine living in a world of germs.
Trust me, you don't want to. It was disgusting. There were feces in the streets. There were too many bodies crowding the churches. Too many bodies to be buried. There were rats gnawing at their face.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lister. You know what, I think it was nice meeting you, and kids, come on. Let's go to our next stop.
Okay, come back if you need a leg amputation.
Yeah, thank you. All right, kids, let's make our final stop in this time period.
Where are we?
Looks like some sort of showcase.
Well, you're exactly right, Arnold. We're at the Great Exhibition in London. This is when France, Britain, and other nations showed off their wealth and power. Look around. What do you see?
This must be Great Britain. In fact, we must be in London at the Great Exhibition of 1851.
Well, that's correct, Dorothy. See, Britain was really prospering during this time. The members of Parliament were helping the people get the right to vote for re-election, and Ireland even got home rule.
Were all the nations this prosperous?
Well, no. France was amidst a revolt because of the inadequate Third Republic, and Germany, as we just saw, was united under a cruel Kaiser. But these nations all had one thing in common: imperialism.
Come on, guys.
Where are we going?
To India.
I love India. The culture is so, rich and exciting. Everyone has this idea that India is, super poor, but, it's not.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you, Dorothy, but that reputation, it has some roots in Asia and India. I love my homeland.
It's mine now.
In the case of India, British made it a colony. They used it for resources, but they exploited it so much that once India finally got independence, it could barely stand.
Did this happen in other nations too?
Yeah, it did, Ralphie. Same thing happened in China. You know, at first China didn't really need any trade or any goods from Europe, but after a while, the Europeans got China hooked on opium just to get resources from their country. How bad is that?
That sounds awful.
I know this next part. It was following the Opium Wars, which China lost horribly. All these other European countries made China a protectorate, and they took parts of China, and they owned them for trading. So, in summary, the white people came in and ruined everything good about China.
Well, that is correct, Wanda. Can anyone tell me the last country that was exploited by imperialism?
Africa!
Off we go, kids! Now imperialism was more focused on splitting up Africa because Asia was conquered by Britain, but Africa, that was a completely different case.
Did the native people have any say at all?
Nope.
Goddamn white people again!
Not only were the natives excluded, but they were mistreated. Just look at what King Leopold did to the natives of Congo.
They get away with it all.
Well, not only Leopold was the one who didn't get away with it, but a lot of the people got away with it with the white man's burden. Basically, they thought they were responsible for educating and making the poorer nations of Africa more civilized.
Well, that's bullshit!
This leads to our final stop. Who's ready to learn about World War I?
Yay!
Welcome to World War I, kids. Who's excited?
I'm not. I heard trench warfare was a killer and that rats can be as big as a cat. A cat!
It's okay. I'll protect you.
Okay then, let's go! Well, kids, it's gonna be a really dangerous trip. But first, who knows how and why World War I started?
Nobody knows that. World War I was like a bajillion years ago.
No, you idiot. It was 73 years ago. You're so uneducated, it disgusts me.
Whoa, calm down. Calm down.
Yes, children, calm yourselves. Arnold, do you know why World War I started?
I'm not totally sure, but I knew that they were alliances between countries and that they were experiencing an arms race.
That's correct, Arnold. There was a Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. The Triple Alliance consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente consisted of Britain, France, and Russia. There was also an arms race during this time, and since Britain had the strongest navy, she ruled the seas. Now, let's all examine the spark that led to this war.
No one likes me because I married Sophie and she's not of royal blood. And today I almost died by a bomb. Well, I'm just gonna sit here with the window open.
I am a member of the Black Hand, and I will do anything to see a united Serbia. Bow, bow, bow! Die!
Because of this assassination, Austria sent Serbia an ultimatum, but they only had 48 hours to make a choice upon it, which is clearly not enough. And Serbia didn't agree to the ultimatum. Germany, on the other hand, agreed to help Austria if it ever needed backup. And they were basically a blank check. And since Serbia didn't agree, they went to war.
Why did the men seem so happy?
Well, first of all, they didn't know how much worse the new weapons or how much worse the new warfare was. And Germany thought they had the war won, so they saw it as an opportunity to take over a ton of land, so they marched to France. The problem was that Russia mobilized their army quickly, so Germany was in trouble. That's depressing.
Yeah, it is. Now let's go to the trenches.
Die! Oh my god, oh my god, that is huge! Oh my god, I don't think I can survive a day in the trenches!
Wait, use mine, use mine.
Die, you German scum! Die, German scum!
What are you supposed to be? I don't even know what nationality you are!
We're British! Gotta reload it! Oh my god, what is that? It's mustard gas! It's mustard gas! Cover the mustard gas! Oh my god! Jessica! Jessica, help me! I'm gonna die! Jessica!
No, I'm too young to die. Are you a coward? Or are you a man?
I'm a man! Die! Die! You don't deserve to live!
Do I have any ammo? Yeah, I do. It's fresh.
Alright, Jessica, we gotta storm their trench. Are you ready? Oh my god! Ready? Go!
Die! 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 This war was deadly, but let's not forget about the Eastern Front, which Germany was fighting Russia. The Eastern Front was a lot more mobilized. That means that they covered a lot more land instead of being in trenches and fighting. In November 1917, there was a revolution in Russia which took down Tsar Nicholas II. This was the end of Tsardom.
But that means that Germany can now focus on the Western Front.
That's correct. This happened at the Battle of Belleau Wood, where Germany focused all of its military support onto France and onto Paris, but France had the help of the Americans. This was Germany's last push to France, and then after the battle, they knew that they couldn't win. The Treaty of Versailles was signed, ending World War I.
Was the Treaty of Versailles fair?
Well, Arnold, it really wasn't, because Germany had no say whatsoever in this treaty. Not only did they just have no opinion, they were even blamed entirely for the war and just forced to pay all the debt. Germany's fate was decided by US, France, and Britain. And if Germany would have a say in war, World War II wouldn't have even happened. And it's because of those three nations that Germany got really angry and really mad about all the debt that they had that it led to World War II. Hey kids, I think it's enough time travel for one day. Let's go home.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dorothy.
Well, Miss Frizzle, I thought we were gonna go back in time to see someone who asked for the same allowances as me.
Well, just think a little deeper, Wanda. I mean, you asked a question of you possibly having the same allowance as Arnold. Remember, if you think back, a lot of the people were asking for equal rights.
Oh.
Well, just think, Wanda. In the French Revolution, people were fighting for equal say in the government. In the Industrial Revolution, workers were fighting and advocating for their own rights. In the rise of ideologies, people were proposing possible scenarios in which everyone was equal. In the unifications, the Germans and the Italians thought they deserved a united, strong, unified country. In La Belle Epoque, you can see women standing up and fighting for their right to vote. And in imperialism, you can see countries like Africa and Asia trying to fight for their rights against European rule. And last but not least, in World War I, you can see that women finally step in the shoes of man and finally secure the right to vote.
Wow, I guess all those people were asking the same question.
They really were, Wanda. As you can see, history is full of continuity. In the early 19th and 20th century, people just like you were asking the question, why can't I be treated the same way you are?
When I'm in high school, I'm gonna take AP Euro.